Her messages were syncing to her dad's iPad. I didn't know they were connected. Hundreds of texts. Not one was to me. One said, "I missed last weekend. When can I see you again?" That was the moment I realized. Sarah wasn't just hiding something. She was living a second life. My name's Thomas. And this is the story of how her father's tablet exposed everything. We lived together. We shared bills, playlists, weekend routines, and the dog we rescued during lockdown. She was my person. At least, I thought she was. That night, we were visiting her parents. Her dad, Greg, had one of those older iPads that always needed charging and somehow refused to stay connected to Wi-Fi. Sarah had run out to grab dinner for everyone, some Thai place she liked. While she was gone, Greg waved me over and said, "Hey, could you look at this thing again? I can't get it to stop buzzing." I took the tablet, expecting a software update or a pop-up. What I saw instead was her name, Sarah, up top, with a message preview that didn't make sense. It said, "I missed last weekend. When can I see you again?" I figured it was a glitch. A spam text, maybe. But I tapped the notification, muscle memory from helping my own dad with the same device. What opened was iMessage. And there, synced in real time, was a thread of messages from her. Pages of them. To a number I didn't recognize. And none of them were about Thai food. Later, I remembered she once mentioned setting up Greg's iPad years ago, when he kept forgetting passwords. "I just used my Apple ID," she'd said. "It was easier. Easier. Until it wasn't." I froze. You ever have that moment where your brain starts to work faster than your body? Like you're sitting still, but inside, you're sprinting through every memory, trying to line things up? Greg was still fumbling with the remote, totally unaware. He trusted me. So did she. I scrolled. The messages weren't recent. They'd been going on for months. Casual at first, little inside jokes, shared memes. Then they got longer, deeper, emotional. There were mentions of meetups, late-night talks, a hotel, then a photo, not graphic, but intimate enough that I felt like I was trespassing in my own life. I put the tablet down like it was burning my hands. My heart was thudding so loud I thought Greg might hear it. I excused myself, said I needed to check on the dog, and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a slap. I stood there on their porch, staring at nothing, trying to figure out what to do. This wasn't some high school text flirtation. This was layered, rehearsed, carefully hidden, and I'd been sleeping beside her through all of it. I didn't go back inside. Not right away. I paced the driveway. I looked up at the sky like maybe the stars had an answer I didn't. All I kept thinking was, she chose to sync that tablet. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-time thing. When Sarah pulled into the driveway, I saw her face through the windshield. Calm, beautiful, carrying food and trust like nothing in the world was wrong. And for the first time in our relationship, I didn't know who I was looking at. She smiled as she got out of the car, asked me if I was cold. I nodded, said I needed a minute. Because in that moment, I wasn't just questioning what she'd done. I was starting to wonder who she really was. And the worst part? I already knew the rest of the night was going to pretend like everything was normal. I walked back into the house like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't just read a dozen messages that made my stomach twist into knots. Like the woman setting down a bag of takeout on the counter wasn't slowly unthreading my life with a smile on her face. Greg was still fiddling with the tablet, so I grabbed it and quietly disabled message syncing. I didn't want him seeing any of it, not out of loyalty to Sarah, but because I knew the man didn't deserve to be caught in the fallout. Whatever this was, it was between me and her, and whoever the hell she'd been messaging. Dinner passed in a haze. Sarah told a story about someone at her office who couldn't figure out how to unmute themselves on Zoom. Everyone laughed, and she looked over at me, expecting the usual wink or squeeze of her hand. I gave her nothing. She noticed. I know she did. When we got home, she asked if I was okay. Said I seemed quiet. I told her I was tired. And that was true, just not the way she thought. That night, after she fell asleep next to me, I stayed up with the dog curled at my feet, reading through every backup I could find. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready to play that hand until I knew exactly what I was holding. Turns out, there's a setting in iCloud where messages can sync across multiple devices if you're using the same Apple ID. It's a weird setup, not one most people use. But she had it turned on, which meant this wasn't some fluke. She'd set it up. Either forgot or didn't realize her dad's old tablet was still part of the chain. And that mistake? That's what gave me the key to everything. The guy's name was Z. That's all she called him. No full name. Just a single initial, like he was part of some secret club. Their texts weren't daily, but they were often enough to build a rhythm. Always late at night or during lunch breaks. Never on weekends when we were out of town, never when she was with her family. They were careful, but not careful enough. I read about inside jokes I didn't know. A podcast they both loved. A beach they'd visited. She mentioned how easy it was to talk to him. How safe he made her feel. Safe. I'd been holding her hair back during stomach bugs. Fixing her car when the battery died. Showing up for her mother's surgery when Sarah couldn't stop crying in the hospital lobby. And she told someone else she felt safe with them? It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. Like I'd been edited out of my own story. I closed the laptop sometime after 3 a.m., hands shaking. I didn't know whether to cry or scream or pack a bag. Instead, I did something worse. I kept pretending. For a week, I watched her move around the apartment like nothing had happened, folding laundry, laughing at sitcoms, dropping kisses on my cheek before work. And all the while, I carried this thing in my chest that kept getting heavier. You'd think the hard part would be discovering the lie. But it's not. It's what comes after. That slow unraveling where every memory starts to feel like it's borrowed from a life that never quite belonged to you. The next Saturday, she told me she had to go into the office for a few hours. Said her manager needed help prepping for some pitch meeting on Monday. She was halfway out the door when I asked, casually, "You taking your phone?" She paused. Said, "Yeah, of course." Then reached back and grabbed it off the charger. That pause, that hesitation, it said more than she ever could. Because the old Sarah wouldn't have forgotten her phone. But this Sarah? She was lying to someone. And I was finally ready to find out who. I watched her back out of the driveway through the kitchen window, her taillights glowing red like a warning I hadn't learned to read until now. She said she was going to the office. But her office was downtown, a straight shot, no turns. I knew the route, knew the time it took, knew the worn patch on her steering wheel where she rested her thumb when she was thinking. But this time, I didn't trust the routine. So I waited 10 minutes. Then I got in my truck and followed. I wasn't proud of it. Still not. There's something that breaks in you when you feel like a detective in your own relationship. Like love has turned into surveillance. But I had to know. Not just what she was doing, but who she was when I wasn't around. She didn't go downtown. She took a left off the freeway. Into a residential area I didn't recognize. Nice neighborhood. Not flashy, but clean. Tree-lined streets. Kids on bikes. A row of townhomes that all looked like they'd been built from the same blueprint. She parked in front of one. Didn't get out right away. Just sat there, checking her reflection in the mirror. Then she walked up to the door. Knocked twice. And he answered. I only saw him for a moment. Tall, casual clothes, maybe late 30s. Confident in that way people get when they know they're being chosen. He smiled when he saw her. She stepped inside. The door closed. And just like that, the part of me that still held out hope snapped. I didn't follow her to confront. I didn't storm the place. I just sat there in my truck, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My heart wasn't racing. It had slowed. Gone still. That eerie calm that comes when the worst has already happened. I sat there for 27 minutes. I counted. Then I drove home. I didn't want to be the guy who broke down in his own driveway. But that's exactly who I became. The dog met me at the door, tail wagging. No clue that the life we built was crumbling like drywall behind wallpaper. Later that night, she came home carrying takeout. Said traffic had been awful. Said the pitch went well. Said she picked up my favorite egg rolls, the ones with the peanut sauce. I thanked her. I even ate one. But I didn't kiss her goodnight. I told her I had work to do. And I stayed in the other room until she fell asleep. Because now I knew the truth. I just didn't know what to do with it. And then, something strange happened. The next morning, I got a text. Not from her. From a number I didn't know, but it had a familiar area code. Local. The message said, "You don't know me, but you need to stop pretending. She's not who you think she is. Check the photos attached." There were 3. The first was of Sarah and that man, the one from the door, sitting on a bench near a lake, her head on his shoulder. The second was them holding hands outside what looked like a cabin. The third? It was them with a child. A little girl. And Sarah was holding her like she belonged to her. Like she was hers. I stared at the number again. Saved under nothing. No hint of identity. But something about the wording, "You need to stop pretending," didn't feel like malice. It felt like guilt. Like someone close enough to know, but too far to say it out loud. I'd later learned the truth. The photos came from Elena. Lily's grandmother. The woman who'd spent 5 years watching the silence grow until she couldn't anymore. A little girl. And Sarah was holding her like she belonged to her. Like she was hers. I sat there, staring at that photo, something in my chest tightening. Because in 3 years together, Sarah had never truly mentioned a child. Once, she showed me a photo of a little girl and said it was her goddaughter. I didn't think twice, she brushed it off so casually. Said the kid lived far away, that they didn't see each other often. Now I knew why it all felt so rehearsed. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because it was unclear, no, it was sharp, almost cruelly so. You could see everything. The little girl's wind-tossed hair. Her pink jacket with a unicorn patch on the sleeve. The way Sarah crouched beside her, one arm around her waist, her smile wide, real. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. And the girl? She had Sarah's eyes. I zoomed in. Not because I needed confirmation, I just couldn't look away. She looked about 4, maybe 5, which meant she'd been born before Sarah and I ever met. So why hadn't she ever said a word? Why was there no photo of her in our apartment, no mention of birthdays or custody weekends, or anything? I texted the number back. Who is this? No reply. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Finally, I called. It rang once. Then disconnected. Whoever it was, they wanted me to know, but not to find them. I sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, trying to line it all up. A second life. A hidden daughter. A man she still saw behind my back. And me? I was just the placeholder. The guy who walked the dog, paid the rent, and slept through all of it. That night, I couldn't pretend anymore. She got home around 6:45. Kicked off her shoes by the door, like always. Called out for the dog, asked what I wanted for dinner. I didn't answer. When she stepped into the room, she froze. I was sitting at the dining table, her phone beside me. The tablet. My laptop open with the photos pulled up on screen. Her face went pale. Like someone had flipped a breaker inside her. She didn't speak. Didn't move. I pointed at the photo of her with the girl. And all I said was, start talking. She sat down slowly. Her hands in her lap. Breathing like she was preparing for surgery. I was going to tell you, she said. The words were brittle. Like if she said them too loud, they'd crack. When? I asked. After the wedding? After we bought a house? When were you going to fit it in between dinner plans and dog walks? She looked down. I didn't know how. Try me. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, her name is Lily. She's mine. I didn't interrupt. I let the silence press on her. Make her feel it. I had her when I was 20. It was a mess, the relationship, the pregnancy. Her dad didn't stay. My parents helped at first, but they weren't built for that kind of support. I blinked. And so what? You just gave her away? Her eyes flashed. No, I didn't give her away. I raised her. I don't have custody anymore. That stopped me. You what? She looked like she'd been slapped. It's not what you think. There was a custody battle. Years ago. I lost. Not because I was dangerous, not because I was a bad mom. Just unstable. Moving around. No job security. His parents had money. They hired the kind of lawyer I couldn't compete with. She wiped at her eye with the back of her hand. I see her sometimes. Holidays. Summers, when they allow it. But it's not consistent. It's on their terms. I tried to process it. You've been hiding a whole child from me, Sarah. For 3 years. She nodded, barely. And that man? I asked. Z? Is that him? She shook her head. No. Z is someone I met after. He helped me through some of the grief. The custody loss. It wasn't physical, not at first. He just listened. Made me feel seen. I didn't expect it to turn into anything. And yet you kept seeing him, I said. Behind my back. She didn't deny it. I needed something I didn't know how to ask you for, she said. I needed to feel like me again. Not just the version I built around you. That version, I said quietly, was the only one I ever knew. She broke then. Tears, shoulders shaking, hands pressed flat to the table like she was holding herself in place. I never wanted to lie to you, she whispered. But every day I didn't tell you. It got harder. And then I didn't know how to go back. I stood, looked down at her like I was seeing someone who no longer lived in my life. Sarah, I said, there's nothing wrong with your past. The problem is, you built a future with me while pretending it didn't exist. She didn't follow me when I walked out. She didn't call my name. Didn't chase. Because maybe even she knew. There's a difference between a secret and a lie. And she hadn't just crossed that line. She built a home on the other side of it. I didn't plan to meet her. Not then. But 2 days after I walked out, I got a text from an unknown number, a different one this time. Just an address and a short message. She keeps asking about you. If you want to understand everything, come. It was signed with a name I didn't know. Elena. I looked up the address. Suburbs, about 30 minutes out. A cul-de-sac in a clean, quiet neighborhood. From the listing, I could tell it wasn't Sarah's place. This was somewhere else entirely. I didn't respond. Didn't ask questions. I just drove. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to be turned away at the door. Maybe to hear a rehearsed version of the truth. What I didn't expect was to be greeted by an older woman, warm eyes, steady presence, who looked at me like I was both a surprise and a long-awaited answer. You must be Thomas, she said. She talks about you. She who? She smiled gently. Lily. My chest tightened. She knows about me? She nodded. Not everything, but more than you'd think. Kids see more than we give them credit for. She stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled like lavender and fresh laundry. Not a trace of chaos. No toys scattered. No mess. Just quiet, lived in peace. And then, I saw her. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring. 5 years old, if that. Brown curls tucked behind one ear. Same slope to her nose as Sarah. Same serious eyes. She looked up, blinked, and just watched me. No fear. No confusion. Just curiosity. Lily, Elena said softly, this is Thomas. He's a friend of your mom's. Lily tilted her head. Then she said, you're the one with the dog. I froze. You know about Buddy? She nodded. Mom shows me pictures. Said you take him to the lake. I like that one. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to respond to a child who shouldn't know my name, but did. I sat on the edge of the couch. She went back to coloring, quietly humming a tune I didn't recognize. Elena sat across from me. She doesn't know the whole story, she said gently, but she's asked why she can't see her mom more. Why she only gets little pieces. So sometimes. Sarah sends photos. Stories. Bits of a life Lily might have had. I swallowed hard. You live with her dad? Elena shook her head. I'm his mother. Lily's grandmother. I stepped in when things got hard. I never wanted it to be this way, but the courts decided. And Sarah, she didn't have the fight left in her. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She lied to you, Elena continued. I know that. I don't excuse it. But I also know what it cost her to walk away from this house after every visit. What it took to build a life around a wound that deep. I looked down at Lily. Still coloring. Still humming. Why me? I asked. Why now? Elena took a breath. Because she knew it couldn't stay hidden forever. And because Lily's old enough to notice the silence. She's starting to ask real questions. And see? I asked, finally. He's not Lily's father? She shook her head. No. He's complicated. Someone from the in-between years. Before you, after Lily. He filled a space, but he wasn't her future. I think Sarah knew that. Even while she was with him. I didn't know if that made it better. Or worse. Lily stood up and walked over to me. Held out her picture, a drawing of a house, a sun, and a dog with a wagging tail. That's Buddy, she said. And that's my mom. And that's you. She said you make her laugh. I stared at the drawing. Felt something shake loose inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something like clarity. A child didn't ask to be erased from my understanding of the person I loved. She didn't lie. She didn't hide. She just existed. Quietly. Waiting to be seen. I looked at Elena. Tell Sarah I got the message, I said. And Lily, she asked. I stood. Took the drawing gently from her hand. Tell her I'm not going anywhere. Because maybe this wasn't the ending. Maybe this was the part where I stopped asking what I'd lost. And started deciding what I was still willing to build. I met Sarah at the park. Neutral ground. Public. Open air. Less chance for yelling, more space for truth to breathe. She showed up late, just 5 minutes, but I noticed. She looked tired. Not in the slept bad kind of way, but in the way people look when they've been carrying something heavy for too long. She sat on the bench across from me, hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater like she was trying to hold herself together. I heard you went to see Elena, she said. I did. She nodded like she'd been bracing for it. Did you meet Lily? I held up the drawing. Buddy, me, the house, the sun. The simple truth of a child who hadn't learned how to edit yet. She knows who I am, Sarah. Her voice cracked before she even answered. I know. I would have loved her, I said softly. From day one. I would have made space. made room for all of it. You didn't even give me the chance. Tears welled, but she blinked them back. I was afraid. Not of you. Of what I'd become if I had to admit it all out loud. Like if I said her name, everything I'd worked to rebuild would fall apart. But it still did, I said. Just slower. And behind my back. She looked away. I was trying to be someone new. Someone worth staying for. You already were, I said. You just didn't believe it. The silence stretched. The kind that holds both apology and aftermath. Finally, she asked, "So, what happens now?" I let out a long breath. Not dramatic. Just necessary. I don't know, I said. I can't come back to how it was. Too much trust broke in the places we weren't looking. She nodded. Slowly. I understand. But, I added, I do want to know, Lily. If you'll let me. She looked up sharply. You do. She drew me, I said, holding up the page again. Before I even met her. That matters. Sarah smiled. Just barely. She'd like that. And see? I asked. Is that over? Yes, she said without flinching. It ended the second I realized I couldn't hold two lives in the same hand without dropping both. I believed her. Not because I trusted her words anymore, but because for the first time, she wasn't selling me anything. No sugar, no spin. Just raw, uncomfortable truth. She reached into her bag and handed me an envelope. I wrote it all down. Everything. Start to finish. No more hidden chapters. I took it. Didn't open it yet. Some things need to sit a while before you can touch them. We parted without drama. No grand goodbye. Just a long look that said, we did love each other. Once. Maybe even still, in some small, complicated way. But love without honesty isn't home. It's a mirage. That night, I went home. Sat on the floor with Buddy. Read the letter. It was messy. Honest. Full of fear and regret, and the kind of clarity people only get after it's too late to fix the thing they broke. And still, something about it gave me peace. She didn't lie anymore. She let the wreckage show. And somehow, that helped me breathe again. In the weeks that followed, I started seeing Lily more. Not all the time. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted her to know the version of me Sarah had kept in the background. We built Lego castles. We walked Buddy to the lake. She asked if I liked unicorns. I said I hadn't thought about them in years, but that I was willing to learn. And somewhere in all of that, I stopped feeling like the man who lost something. I started feeling like someone who found something instead. No, not the relationship. That chapter's closed. But something deeper. Myself. My worth. The quiet truth that I am not the sum of someone else's fear. And one day, maybe not soon, I'll love again. But next time, I'll make sure the story starts with the full truth, even the chapters that hurt. Because love doesn't hide. Love shows up. Fully. Unflinching. And ready to stay.